Hey, if we want to build the future, we're gonna need something.
Like a high-speed internet connection that could turn my ideas into reality.
Like the skills to become the world's most powerful coder.
The resources to make more films with people who look like me.
Like me.
Like me.
Like me. Like me. Like me. Like me.
Like the tools to start my sustainable shoe business.
Way more space to collaborate.
Yeah, that's better.
Through Project Up, Comcast is committing $1 billion to open doors for the next generation so they can build a future of unlimited possibilities.
Financial freedom, it's within everyone's reach. Anissa Keyes shows you how to build prosperity and generational wealth for your family on Becoming the Bank.
Hello, it's me, Anissa Keyes with Becoming the Bank. If you're tuning in for the very first time this week, it's a podcast that shares biblical principles and practices that have helped me to become a generational wealth builder. It's important to understand this podcast is about becoming. So I use principles and practices I've shared over the last year about how to become someone that is financially free. However, in the next 3 weeks, or over the last 6 weeks total, right, I'll be sharing my very specific wealth building strategies and practices that I personally implemented myself. They're my favorite. They're the ones that are my go-to. I feel like that they created the strong foundation for me to become a generational wealth builder. And I think that if you were to even just like listen and take tidbits from these, they'll be so informational. Okay, so I've done 3 already. I've previously talked about debt reduction, not debt elimination, debt reduction. I talked about business ownership and how that is a wealth building strategy. Last week, I talked about generational legacy building. I talked about the different ways in which you can be able to set a premise, a strong basis to be able to leave your children something. I think the assumption is that is like acquire a little bit of wealth and somehow it just magically ends up in our children's hands, which is not reality. And more often than not, wealth is literally gained in one generation and then lost in the next generation. So look back at those old podcasts. If you have questions about those, we're going to continue to move forward. I have 3 more of my personal wealth building strategies. And today specifically, I want to talk about real estate. And I know real estate is one of those like, it's kind of like a no-brainer, right? It's like, yeah, of course, right? Like if you're going to diversify your portfolio, I guess that's the financial language, or if you're going to make sure that your money is spent in different ways, or your assets are held in different pockets, right? That you want to make sure that real estate is one of them. So naturally, the assumption that comes with real estate, right, is that like you should own a home. And I think that that's correct. I mean, I think that for sure your home is the quickest way to be able to build some sort of like generational wealth, or at least wealth for yourself, right? It's a home naturally has some appreciative value over time, which makes sense. It is a way for you to be able to have like some equity, right? Which means that like that's literally like liquid money that you can have, that you can be able to like access at any time. And in general, I feel like we all agree that like it's one of the most accessible ways to build wealth. But there's so many other ways around real estate. And I want to just give like a quick disclaimer, and then I'm going to jump into the 3 ways that I personally use real estate to become a wealth building strategy for me. Right. And so, okay, home ownership for sure increases your net worth. Right. And net worth is simply like your assets. Right. And then you subtract your liabilities and then bam, that's your net worth. Right. And so why people assume that there is this natural link between wealth building and home ownership is because, right, it's like the most accessible asset that you can buy that automatically has a value that's going to appreciate over time. And you have a mortgage. And though the value of the house appreciates over time, so that means, you know, that definitely it's worth more, your mortgage stays the same. right? And then it's constantly paying off the principal of that. So bam, there you go, right? Pretty easy. This is why it's considered like the best, like accessible vehicle to get to wealth building. I want to be clear though, right? Owning a home is a liability, right? So it's an asset in a sense that it has value and it appreciates, but you're always going to owe on your home in some capacity. Like it's always going to cost you something. And that's like, whether it's like you are like dishing out money for a new furnace or a new roof over time, or, you know, just natural repairs on your house, or even after you've paid the house off, right? You still have to pay taxes and insurance, like, right? Like you're never making money from the house, right? It's never generating a stream of income unless you get creative, right? So there are some ways to get creative. Like I remember that when I was building my house, the house that I owned, that I lived in, was traveling the last few months before I would move into my new home. And like, I was like, I wonder if I could Airbnb it. And I remember I made like 7 G's in a month. Like it was nice. And I was like, that paid for a couple months of like, you know, mortgage. And I remember hearing about like, I don't know if it was the Super Bowl that was happening, or if it was the World Series. Something was in downtown Minneapolis just recently, like over the last few years. And I remember that people were renting out their house. Like people were going to stay somewhere else with like a family, or going up to a cabin up north. And then they were like renting their home for a lot of money. So there's creative ways in which you can generate some income coming from your home. But typically, if it's your primary home, there's no way to really make money off of it. So then it becomes a liability more than anything. No worries though, right? Because my wealth building strategies are helpful no matter you have just your home, or if you want other homes that you're trying to acquire, or if you want to acquire commercial real estate. There are things that I've done that have helped me to become a wealth builder that include both of those strategies, right? And so I want to go over all 3 of them today. All right, so listen, my very first one. I let my real estate financially fuel my other endeavors. So here's the strategy, right? Because there are people that have real estate, but they don't necessarily use it in the same ways to build wealth, which is cool. So I'm giving you mine. So one of the ways that I allow my real estate to be a benefit to me, right, outside of like making me money, because that would be one way, but that's not actually the way that I use my real estate, right? It's not like I get a lot of rental income. That is not a way that I build wealth. It is a small portion of the way that I utilize my real estate, right? One of the main ways I use it is I use it to fuel my other endeavors. What does that mean? Real estate has something in it called equity. It's that sweet number that is the difference between how much your house or your property is worth, right? And how much the debt is, right? So your house is worth 200, you owe 150 on it. So it's that sweet $50,000 difference, right? It's that cushion that's in there that you can actually utilize for cash, right? That equity is like able to be liquidated. And so, for example, I would use this as a wealth strategy, is that I would actually build up equity so that I can be able to have that as not just leverage to go and purchase something else. I will pull that equity out and I will use it to go into another endeavor. So I am not in the position to have like hundreds of thousands of dollars sort of sitting around in my account. I don't have it like that. I don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars at my business. So what I do is I wait until some of my real estate has had some equity in it. And then I utilize that equity. I pull from it to be able to go into another endeavor. So for example, I pulled cash from a residential property that I own and used it as some of my down payment for a building, right? Like I didn't sell the home, right? I didn't refinance the home. I pulled the equity from it. There's different ways to do it. Refinance is one of them. The other way that you can do it is you can actually also pull it out through a HELOC loan or some other kind of way. Whatever works. The point is you're pulling the equity out and you're using it to fuel a future endeavor. It could have been to fuel like a scaled business, like to be able to invest in another business or a business that I have and be able to take it to another level or put in another product or service. And I need more money to be able to do that. And so I use the real estate to financially fuel my other endeavors. That's the first thing that I do. I have two more strategies. The second strategy that I have is, right, when I purchase properties, I only purchase them under an LLC. What this does is this gives me the ability to separate the gain or the loss of my property from myself. I'm going to say it one more time. This gives me the ability, right, when I purchase a property under an LLC, which means I own the company that owns the property. So I don't own the property under myself. So if something were to happen to the property, then I would be liable for it. Or more importantly, what I'm getting at here is that because it's separate from me, then I'm able to dictate the gain or the loss on the property itself. And I get to play with that depending upon like what my financial position is. So this is important, right? Because sometimes it's important that I show success and I have to have my income hit at a different level. So if I am, for example, able to rent to myself, so for example, Aruba is a company that I own that is a clinic, and I rent to my clinic. Well, when Aruba was in the position where maybe it did not have the high rents to be able to afford, well, then I can kind of say Aruba does not have to pay maybe the market rate rent for the next year or 2 years, right? Aruba maybe pays, right, under market rent because maybe Aruba can't afford it. Or maybe, right, that Aruba can afford more. And so then Aruba pays higher rent, right? So I can sort of strategize and drive sort of what my agencies make or lose, right? And whatever situation most benefits my financial positioning. And so what's nice about purchasing properties under an LLC is you get to separate the gain and loss from yourself, and you get to drive what makes money and what loses money depending upon what you need it to do because of the way that you've structured the purchasing of the property. Okay, that's my second one. And this is my last one. And this is an easy one, right? My greatest, right, strategy with real estate is that it's my collateral. So it is easy to build wealth if you have money already. It is difficult to build it if you do not have a bunch of money sitting around. And so the way that you can get money or access money is by collateral. And real estate is one of the greatest things that serves as collateral. It's the thing that most people will kind of say, yep, if you can put this house on the line or this building on the line, I'll vouch and I'll give you X amount of dollars, right? There's nothing else really, no other asset that like holds that kind of value and that kind of weight that you can possess, right? It's literally gives you the ability to be able to access way more money, right? Not because you have the money, but because you have something of value that can serve as collateral so you can get more money, right? So this collateral allows you to be able to access more money. The more collateral, the more money, right? And so too, as your real estate portfolio grows, right, and the more that you have, then the assumption is that works in conjunction with like how much money you can access, right? Of course, you need to have equity in the property. And there's a lot of like nuances to these. So it's not like something you can just go out and do, right? And so there's some more education that might need to be helpful. But I wanted to make sure you guys knew my strategies around real estate and wealth building. All right. So listen, hear me out. Again, these are just ideas around wealth building strategies around real estate. They're not guarantees, right? They work differently for everybody. I didn't go into the details. I didn't go into the pros and cons of each one of those. I didn't go into the hangups. I was just telling you the ideas that have served me well, right? So this just kind of opens your mind to the possibilities of like the different ways that people build wealth, right? It doesn't have to be any of these. You continue to learn and find your way, right? And then listen, over the next 3 weeks, I will continue to give you a couple of more wealth building strategies that I use, my very personal ones that I implement that are super important to me that I want to leave you guys with as I kind of transition out of this podcast role. And there'll be somebody amazing, I'm sure, that Miss Shaletta will put into this seat. I hope today you heard something, right, that blessed you today, that you have learned something, or at least that something has piqued your interest. My hope is that you end up becoming a blessing and a resource to your family, your sphere of influence, and your community. This is Becoming the Bank with Anissa Keyes. I'll see you next time.
Check back next week for more of Anissa's Kingdom Principles to Live a Prosperous Life. To find previous episodes of Becoming the Bank, log on to ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
Boost your immunity and help protect your community. COVID-19 is still here, and it's not too late to get your booster. Staying up to date with vaccines can help build protection that has decreased since your last shot and provide better protection against newer variants. Boosters are an important part of protecting yourself from getting seriously ill from COVID-19. To learn more and schedule your appointment, visit ramseycounty.us/COVID vaccine.
All right, did you know I was the Mommy Slam Dunk Champion?
Really?
Yes, really, don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, go to left, fake 'em out. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.